So the Department of Health and Human Services announced $281 million to combat addiction, overdoses, and mental illness, broadly defined.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things where everyone's going to sort of bipartisan go, yay, you know, more money at the problem. That's great because we, you know, we see the problems on the streets, especially in places like California and Colorado and Washington. And I'm here going, it's not that I want to ignore the problem, but I don't think that just throwing more money at it is actually the solution in this sense. Like I was speaking to, there's a friend of mine who works in law enforcement. And so he's there on the streets as a cop. And he tells me that sometimes, you know, we get this call and there's somebody who's in a really difficult situation. They're on drugs. They have, you know, some major mental disorder like schizophrenia or something. They're completely unable to really take care of themselves. And he said to me, here's my problem. We have two places we can take them, to the hospital or to jail. The hospital will keep them for 24 hours, let them out, or they can go to jail. But that's it. That's all I can do. I had those two options. And you have somebody who's on the streets and they're screaming or whatever, and I'll take them to one or the other, but that's not a permanent solution. They're going to get back out and I'm going to arrest them again in a week and take them to the same place. And I think this is one of the issues in which you're having these problems, you know, in some states more than others. You know, those that have allowed for widespread drug use, of course, also ends up fueling mental illness and so on. But until we like reopen the institutions, I don't think that you actually have a real solution here. You know, oh, here's some more money so that you can help a person who overdosed and almost died, and then they can continue, you know, right afterwards. Like, that's not a moral approach. And just, oh, okay, well, we need some more Narcan. Like, okay, well, maybe we do, but also can we have some approach that actually recognizes, hey, these human beings are actually floundering, and they're also making society less healthy for everybody else as well. Like, this is affecting everyone. You
need some kind of long-term facilities where these people can be safe from danger of being isolated and putting themselves at risk, that they won't put others at risk through whatever behaviors they might be prone to, and where they can get longer-term treatment. And this is the problem, is that the word, here we go with what words mean and what words are associated with, when this is grant programs. I don't want any more programs. I want actual, like you said, institutions. I want actual places, facilities, things that actually do stuff, not programs where they'll talk about it, where they'll hire a vast bureaucracy to promote things, to hand out stuff. No, I want places, actual physical places where people who are mentally ill, struggling with drug disorders can go to get over this stuff, to be protected. People with mental illness can be taken care of in some way. These are things that are not a bad thing for the public to provide, because it is a public good to take care of these people.
100%.
It is good for the entire citizenry if your government has facilities properly run, properly maintained, properly funded, that keep, for example, a mentally ill person from harassing you and your kids out on the street. Like, that's as simple as it is. Do you want that to happen because there's no public company, private, company interest in doing this? Or do you want that to be taken care of as a duty of government, whether it's state, whether it's federal, whatever it is, so that this phrasing that it's going to go to these overdose prevention and response, mental health and suicide prevention services, trauma-informed care. These are things that are not bad in and of themselves, but where are they based? What are they? How long-term is this going to be?
And they're all end of the line.
Yes.
It's end of the line treatment, that then keeps the person right where they are, and doesn't actually provide any pathway toward an improvement. Mm-hmm. And so therefore you're just going to sort of need expanding amounts of money over time as this group of people continues to expand. Yep. Those who don't end up, to be crass here, but end up dying in the streets. Yep. Because that's what ultimately happens with so many of these people who really can't take care of themselves, either because they have a mental illness underlying or because they've lost their minds on the drugs that they're taking, so that therefore, as a result, they temporarily can actually exercise their own control. And so you also need a legal system that has the framework to be able to say, okay, for 6 months or whatever it is, you're going to be in this facility and we are going to go through a rehab situation with you, or we're going to just, take care of you in the case of someone, say, with paranoid schizophrenia or something. But you need that system in place. It's not a moral good to say, freedom, and therefore leave people out in a situation where they can't exercise freedom because they can't actually think and they have no ability to reason anymore. And there's like an evil to that that's being sort of, painted as a moral brush, which is like really kind of offensive and twisted. To say, that they're free, look at them in their tents, living in some of the worst conditions, actually in the world, when you really like to get into them, because like police officers who have to go through these areas are just like completely in shock at the way some of these people are living. That's not a moral good to just allow them to flounder that way, and it's not good for the rest of society either.
And sadly we live in an era when the church is also too weak to step in and do the traditional duties of the church with hospitals. And I mean, we've talked about the Little Sisters of the Poor and so forth. Those groups are few and far between nowadays, and they don't have the vocations they once did. So at least on a temporary level of cleaning up the country and helping these citizens who are hurting. So this is not just about lock them up somewhere so that we don't have to deal with them. It has to be about caring for them as well, and taking the fear of big government and of government spending too irrationally far, so that you're actually denying these public goods, these things that would be a public good if they were done properly. Big caveat when you're dealing with government bureaucracy, if it was done properly. But it has to be done, because it's not being done, again, with private businesses, with private efforts, and the church is in a weak spot right now. So the only way to get it done on a long-term basis is if the government steps in. But it seems like all the money is going to go, again, to these. They do have these treatment centers, again. There's these training first responders and communities and such. Again, good things in and of themselves, but they are not long-term solutions to the crisis.
Right, and I do think that, when we shut down the institutions, one of the arguments was that they weren't well managed, and it's like, okay, so are most of our public schools, but no one's saying let's shut down all public education.
Well, some of us are, but yes.
Thanks, Jake. But instead it's unthinkable for most people to shut down public schools. Instead, it's like, let's reform the schools. Let's make actual changes to what's going on. Let's localize them and so on. And we can do something similar with the institutions. It was never a solution to go, okay, well, I guess we don't have mentally ill people anymore, or I guess we don't have people who are struggling with these extreme drug addictions anymore. It was just a ridiculous claim that has resulted in so many deaths and so much human suffering as a result, under the guise of doing something that is moral and humane. But it's not humane, it's not moral. So we need to work for long-term solutions there to help to really create a just order.
Yes.